C. difficile is a very serious infection that occurs most of the time in the hospital. It usually occurs after a course of antibiotics or after drugs that can affect the complex microflora of the intestinal tract. That microflora has more than 1,000 species of bacteria and 10 times as many bacteria as we have cells in our body. So you get some kind of idea of how complicated this system is, and that we live in a relationship with it that's symbiotic, meaning that we feed it and it does services for us. But when we disturb that system, infections such as C. diff occur that can cause a very severe gastroenteritis that can be bloody and perforate walls and oftentimes is lethal. And in the December 2012 issue of the British Medical Journal, an article came out saying that dogs may be man's best friend, but they're also turning out to be very important diagnosticians because they can sniff out these superbug infections. Now, we've known for some time that you can diagnose cancer fairly accurately using dogs to sniff for breast cancer and lung cancer and other kinds of cancers. And now, in this particular study, they looked at dogs that they could be trained in about 2 months. And they presented them with 50 patients who had C. diff, and they identified all of them. And they presented them with 50 other patients that didn't have C. diff and identified 47 of them. So we're looking at a very interesting tool that's cost-effective, simple, and that works very well. Fact is, these dogs can actually screen an entire ward in less than 10 minutes with about 90% accuracy. So it's pretty amazing. So how does this sniffing work? Well, basically, when you have an abnormal process going on in the body, either a cancer or an infection of some kind, a lot of chemicals are formed that can be exhaled in the breath or in body fluids. And dogs' noses, as we know, are extremely sensitive and can tell when something, even in small amounts, is present when we'd have no chance of smelling that ourselves, even though many doctors are pretty good with their noses at identifying a lot of different kinds of infections or situations that people are in. So, yeah, dogs are pretty interesting. They also can be used to sniff things like money and cell phones, and we know that drugs at airports is something they do. They can detect firearms and bed bugs. What we can do to train a dog is amazing. We should be thinking more about how we can use dogs in the practice of medicine because we get along with them well, they're man's best friend, and they have diagnostic skills that are affordable and highly accurate, even more so than some of the tests that we do, such as the blood tests or the stool tests that we do to identify certain kinds of infections that take a fair amount of time to diagnose when a dog can just give it a sniff.